The door to the Three Stags Inn bursts open in the early morning. Rorik stumbles in with his sister clinging to him.
Help! I need a healer.
The inn is empty with the exception of Vagenhild. Vagenhild sets her jaw. This was not a time to sit around.
Go to Dranath. He lives just up the way on the hill in a little hut. You'll know you're in the right place when you reach the smell.
A small fraction of Rorik relaxes.
Thank you.
Just as Vagenhild said, the hut certainly has a strange odor to it. Smoke billows out of an opening in the roof. This must be the smell. Forgetting his manners, Rorik bursts in and finds a wrinkled and shriveled prune of a man sitting in the center of the hut. His eyes are closed and he is still. Rorik suspects the old man is dead, until he speaks.
Are you just going to stand there, or are you going to bring her in?
Rorik shudders. The man barely moved and he certainly didn't open his eyes, yet he knew of Jaina's injuries.
Fine.
The old man suddenly breathes, his whole body expanding just before settling with the exhalation. He stands up and motions to a small mat tucked to the side. Rorik brings Jaina over and lays her down.
Can you help her?
Dranath runs his hand over Jaina's face and hovers above her eyes.
A backlash. She was not careful. She was impatient. I can help her, but my services do not come free.
For the first time in days, Rorik breathes a sigh of relief. The expenses were well worth it just to heal Jaina.
Welcome to the castle, everybody. Come on in. My name is Alex. I am your player, your GM, your host for A Table for One, a solo role-playing podcast where I play through various games solo style. And this is the Dragonbane campaign. The first thing that we're going to do after our opening scene is talk about experience, because experience is going to run a little bit differently in this campaign than it did in Alone in Deepfall Breach. The first thing that we do need to address is that I'm not going to be rolling to upgrade skills at the end of every episode, because a session in real life with a group of players is going to be a lot longer than an episode of this podcast. And so I'm only going to upgrade or attempt to upgrade my skills every milestone or after every quest. And since the last episode we actually did succeed on a quest, I went ahead and upgraded some of the skills there. But there's going to be some differences, some very notable differences. So let's see what the rulebook has to say about that. When you have rolled a dragon or demon when using a skill check, tick the box next to that skill. At the end of the game session, the GM asks you the following questions about the session you just completed. For each question that you can reply yes to and justify your answer, you may place another advancement mark next to an unmarked skill of your choice. The GM has the final word, but should adopt a permissive attitude. And we have 5 questions. Did you participate in the game session? So you automatically gain 1 XP if you made it to the session. Did you explore a new location? Did you defeat one or more dangerous adversaries? Did you overcome an obstacle without using force? And did you give in to your weakness, which is an optional rule? So we have at least 4 available to us, because I'm not exactly playing with weaknesses. But then again, we also have demons and dragons, which we roll on, and I'm going to be keeping track of, and those can add to our total tally mark. So for the previous quest line, I've gone ahead and accumulated 3 experience marks. So we definitely were in the session, so we got 1 for that. We definitely explored a new location, so we get another mark for that. And we did defeat more than 1 adversary, so there's another mark. So that's 3 in total for Jaina and Rorik. I've also gone ahead and put in the dragons and demons into it. Jaina had quite a bit more, I think, demons and dragons than Rorik did. And so I've gone ahead and off camera I've rolled for that. Unfortunately, there wasn't really anything outstanding. Her awareness and myths and legends went up. Unfortunately, her elementalism stayed the same, and I was really hoping that that would get upgraded, but it just didn't turn out for us. For Rorik, his spot hidden did go up, and that was about the only one Everything else kind of stayed the same, even his swords, which was rather unfortunate because I would have really liked to have bumped that up to a 15. But sometimes the rolls are with us and sometimes they are not, and we just gotta roll with the punches on those. I will say that the dice that I've been using, they kind of tend to roll like the same number multiple times. So I was rolling like a lot of 13s on these skill rolls, so yeah, there might be something weird going on with that. So with that taken care of, let's go ahead and set up another scene for Rorik, because after getting back to the Three Stags Inn, they were of course pointed towards Dranath. He is like a healer, and he took a look at Jaina, and he does have some like dispel magic that he could have used, which he did. I mean, Jaina's all healed up by this point, and that cost us 5 gold, which I don't think I mentioned in the previous episode, but we got paid probably about 20 gold pieces, and so that's not going to be enough to keep us afloat for a while, but that's what we have to work with. So Rorik does need to go out on another job, and quite soon. And so in this scene, he's going to be in the Three Stags Inn, probably in the morning while Jaina is resting, and he's gonna hear about a rather interesting proposition. So let's go ahead and set that scene up.
Rorik finds himself in front of the job board at the Three Stags Inn. It is bare today. Adventurers and mercenaries must be common in these parts. We'll have to be on the watch for those who travel around, for they are the ones who will hear news of their bounty first.
No such luck today?
Rorik turns to find Annabella passing by. She slows, granting him a few words.
Not quite. Doesn't look like anything's been posted for today.
Annabella remains quiet for a few seconds as she contemplates something.
Well, I hear Quasimund, that mallard who's sitting over there by himself, is getting ready to head out to Riddermound on some expedition. It wouldn't hurt to have an extra sword arm, or a mage. Tell him I sent you over.
She leaves before Rorik can give his thanks. With a sigh, he walks over to the table where the lone mallard contemplates over a map.
Mind if I join you?
Rorik asks. Before his hand can touch the back of the chair, the mallard speaks without looking up at him.
What do you want?
Rorik lets out another deep breath. Straight to the point it is then.
I'm looking for work, and Annabella said you were preparing an expedition to Riddermound. I want in.
The mallard looks up from his map, his eyes scanning Rorik. He makes a note that the man looks capable enough, but he's already got his band. Before he can deny him, Rorik speaks up.
Surely you could use another strong arm, and a mage would be very valuable.
Quasimund pauses and then crosses his arms.
You? A mage?
No, my sister. Wherever I go, she goes.
The point was made clear. If he wanted a mage, Rorik would have to go, and a mage would be very valuable on an expedition such as this. Eventually, Quasimund relents.
Fine. We leave in an hour's time. Make sure the mage is ready.
Quasimund gathers his map and departs. Rorik gulps and watches him leave before departing himself. He had preparations to make, supplies to buy.
So there we have it. Rorik has met Quasimund. He is a mallard who is kind of down on his luck with his band of adventurers, and they're looking to go to Riddermound in order to find some lost and ancient treasure that they could possibly sell for a quick profit. Of course, Rorik did have to kind of finagle his way into Quasimund's good graces, and it doesn't really make sense for Rorik and Jaina to just go with Quasimund without preparing, and so we're going to do a very quick shopping spree. Now we've got about 15 gold and 91 silver pieces to spend, so not a whole lot for gear, but that's gotta count for something. We're gonna go ahead and ask Vagenhild where's a place that we can go where we can buy some general goods, and she of course is going to point us to Master Ulvar's. And Master Ulvar's is a little bit of a location on top of the hill, and here's actually what it says. This is an oblong, windowless log building. On the roof, there are goats feeding on the unkept grass. Above the entrance hangs a grained wooden sign saying Master Ulvar's in curling letters. And so that is how we know that we are in the right spot. And so upon entering this log building, we're met with Master Ulvar, who is a tall, red-faced man in his 50s with an impressive, drooping mustache. He has hands the size of hams and speaks with a booming voice that makes his mustache quiver every time he talks. And of course, he actually does have a son whose name is Jory. Now, unfortunately, Master Ulvar's does not have any weapons or armor or shieldings or anything like that. It's all going to be general goods, and it's got to be common rating or lower. And so I've already gone ahead and taken a look at the list of various gears that we can take, and well, we're actually going to go ahead and take 8 field rations. That's going to be very helpful for us, especially since it's going to be a 2 days journey to Riddermound, and it's going to be 2 days journey back, so at least 4 rations for the entire journey. I think Rorik already has 3 in his possession, and Jaina's still got 1 left, but we still need to prepare, and so having a little bit of a buffer like that is a bonus. In addition to that, Rorik is going to purchase a backpack. That'll increase his encumbrance by 2 for items, which is probably going to be necessary because encumbrance is going to play a factor in this game, probably a little bit more so than most other games because it can be really debilitating if we're encumbered. And the way encumbrance works in this game is that it's your strength level cut in half, rounded down. And so for Rorik, that's going to be 6. And for Jaina, I think that's going to be 5. So that means they can carry 5 items that are weight 1, or the accumulative weight of 6 for Rorik and 5 for Jaina. Of course, not all items have a weight. There are some tiny items which have a weight of 0, and of course, that can also add up too. In that backpack, we're going to purchase some bandages, which come in a bundle of 10, and that will allow us to heal up just a little bit. In fact, bandages are required to avoid a bane on healing rolls for saving lives. Each attempt consumes bandages. And so there's 10 total in that bundle. And we're just going to go ahead and stuff that in our backpack. It does have a weight of 1, so it fits perfectly in there. And last but not least, Rorik is going to purchase a whistle for Jaina. And because she cannot talk, it only makes sense that there's got to be some way to find her if they should ever separate or get lost. And especially since now they're going a little bit further away from outskirts, there's more possibilities that can happen, especially if one of them gets in trouble. And the last thing that is going to catch Rorik's eye is, he's going to find a musical instrument. Just a series of musical instruments. There's going to be 3 of them in Master Ulvar's. There's going to be a drum, a flute, and a horn. And that catches Rorik's eye because he really likes a good story. And when you go into a tavern or even a small town, you're always going to find like a bard of some sort who's singing or telling a tale, and they're usually accompanied by an instrument. And Rorik likes that. He wants to kind of be like a bard in some sense. And having a musical instrument would actually kind of get him towards that goal. And so I think what he wants to do is that he actually wants to learn an instrument. And growing up, he never really had that opportunity. And even growing up into an adult, he never had that opportunity because he was always on the travel with whatever he was doing as either a mercenary or a soldier. So we have the drum, the flute, and the horn to purchase here. Unfortunately, he doesn't have a whole lot of money. And so he kind of thinks the pros and cons. This is kind of a selfish thing for him to even consider, especially with Jaina's life on the line here. Like, what if one of them gets messed up again and they have to go see the healer and pay another 5 gold? Can they really afford that? But then again, they're about to go on this job and they're going to get paid in some way. So possibly. Ultimately, Rorik decides to buy the cheapest instrument, and that's going to be the flute for 2 gold. And so he's going to stuff that one in his backpack, and he's going to keep that one hidden. He's not going to tell Jaina about this purchase because he would be ashamed that he even considered something so selfish. But he's got something that he can look forward to now, in some sort of privacy wherever he's at. He can find somebody to teach him while he's on the road, and whenever they're back in Outskirt, he might find somebody, or just kind of mess around and see if he can learn on his own. That won't go very well, and I should know because I'm a music teacher, and there's no YouTube in Dragonbane. So with that all being said and done, we are down to about 5 gold and 71 silver in our pockets. So that's not really a whole lot. And I've also gone ahead and factored in the stay at the inn. So that's why it's a little bit lower than what you're calculating at the moment. But we are adequately prepared, and we can go back to Quasimund the Mallard and join up with his band of adventurers. So when Rorik gets back to the Three Stags Inn, Jaina's probably going to be awake by now and preparing for the day. So Rorik will go up to her and tell her what's going on. They're going out on a journey, 2 days to the west to the Iron Forest, to Riddermound, where they can hopefully find something of value and they can sell it back in town. Or at the very least, Quasimund will pay them for protection. Now, Quasimund is a mallard. He's going to have a band of adventurers, and we're going to go ahead and say that he's bringing along 3 capable adventurers with him. And these will be people that he's kind of been exploring around with for quite a while, although they are very much down on their luck, and Rorik's going to notice that they don't really look like the adventuring type. But hey, he shouldn't assume anything because he does not want to be an ass, and so with Jaina in tow, they will begin to explore. So as I've already stated before, it is a 2 days journey to Riddermound and the Iron Forest. So on the first day, we're going to go ahead and roll a random encounter around Outskirts and see if anything comes up. And then on the second day, we'll go ahead and roll for the Iron Forest where Riddermound is located. So the first leg of the journey, let's see, does anything happen? I will need my D12 and we'll go ahead and see if anything comes out. Now, of course, the way that I do rolls for journeys is that a 1 through 6 is going to be nothing happens, but if we should get that, I'm going to go ahead and ask the Oracle if nothing truly happens or if there's something, because I have a separate supplement that has some expanded journeys for the 1 through 6. So let's see, does anything happen? That is a 5, so we're going to go ahead and ask the Oracle, does something happen? That is going to be a no, but something might happen in the camp. So along the first leg of the journey, we get to a good camping spot. I'm not going to roll bushcraft to set up a tent because there's quite a few number of capable adventurers that can help out if need be. So Rorik is going to set up the tent for himself and Jaina, while everybody else is setting up the campfire and whatnot. And during the night, as the adventurers are gathered up in their little group and Rorik and Jaina are in the tent, Rorik's actually going to try to interact with them and just try to be friendly, just to try to get in their good graces and, get to know these strangers that he's now traveling with. He doesn't know these people and they don't know him. He does have some secrets to hide, but he doesn't want to put his sister in unknowing danger. He wants to know these people just in case. Wants to gauge their character, I suppose. And so he's going to talk with them. And I think what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and roll a charisma roll for Rorik, just to see if, he might learn something about the band of adventurers. And so we're going to go ahead and roll our D20. His charisma is at 10, so we need a 10 or lower. So let's see what happens. Ooh, that is a dragon. The first dragon of the session. So this one actually puts us in a bit of a bind because we're rolling for charisma, but we don't really rank up the attributes. So I'm going to go ahead and put the mark on persuasion because it's kind of like persuasion. We're trying to persuade them to tell them a little bit about themselves. And so we do have a mark on persuasion, which we'll roll at the end of the session. And Rorik kind of learns a little bit about the band of adventurers. The first thing that he's going to learn is that this trio has been adventuring with Quasimund for quite some time, and they're kind of a close-knit group. Rorik can definitely tell just by their interactions around the campfire. And Even Quasimund is part of this group, so I guess instead of a trio, it will be a quad of friends. But of course, over the years, they've been down on their luck in their adventuring, and they're just as poor as Rorik is. They're desperate to find something that they can bring back and sell for a very quick profit. They don't really tell why they need to make some money. They don't really go into depth about what they're looking for or anything like that. But Rorik kind of suspects that there's a little bit more to this band of adventurers than that they're letting on. So he's going to be a little bit suspicious of that, but at the same time, there's a little bit of an understanding because he's just as much of a stranger as they are to him. And so they don't want to reveal their secrets, especially if there's money involved. They don't want to release anything that could compromise their business, so to speak. And so he's fine with accepting that, but he is going to keep a very close eye on them. And so he notices that as he goes back to the tent after maybe a few hours of conversing, that they are now watching him just as much as he wants to watch them. So they are a little bit wary of him now. Quasimund is going to suggest that they keep a watch for the night. And so Rorik is going to take his watch by himself. He's going to let Jaina sleep, especially since she's still feeling a little bit weak from her accident with the magic in the last session, where she kind of was blinded by a fireball mishap. So he's definitely going to let her sleep and rest up as much as she can. And so nothing happens in the night, and in the morning they prepare and they start traveling. And so that's going to be one food ration taken care of right there from both Jaina and Rorik. And so now we're entering into the Iron Forest, and we're going to see if anything really happens here. So a 1 through 6 is still going to be nothing, and we'll ask the Oracle. And a 7 through 12, something will happen. So let's see. That's a 6, so we'll go ahead and ask the Oracle, does something happen? No, but... So maybe something's happening at the camp yet again. Later that night, Rorik attempts to converse, progress a little bit of a relationship with this band of adventurers, try to get to know them a little bit better. But they are going to... Well, let's see. We're going to see if we can get another charisma check out of the way. Persuasion, possibly, to see if he can notice anything more about them. So let's roll that d20. That's going to be a 20. So that's a demon. And for this one, I'm actually going to put my mark into bluffing, because instead of learning about the band of adventurers, he's going to let slip up that things are not going so well with him and his sister. That there's a reason why that they're here and they need money very quickly. And they kind of assume that he's on the run from something. Rorik can't really gauge their reaction, whether or not they're really leaning into that aspect, that they're looking to, exploit that somehow, or if they're being wary of him. Because for the rest of the night, they keep a very close watch on him, but they're kind of keeping him out of their business now. And Quasimund isn't really going to say anything because he's got his mind focused on getting to Riddermound. So, of course, Jaina is going to realize that something is wrong, and Rorik will just tell her to keep her eye out on this group, that anything can happen and they need to be ready. So Rorik is already suspicious of the band of adventurers, but now they are something to Rorik, and he doesn't quite know just yet, and that's scary in of itself. Like, when you don't know what somebody else is thinking towards you, that can be a very scary aspect, especially if you're dealing with a stranger. So, in the morning, they pack up. That's another ration down from Rorik and Jaina, and we are at Riddermound. When they get to Riddermound, it's like all foggy and whatnot in the trees, because it's kind of surrounded by the Iron Forest. They come across a hill crowned by tall standing stones as it rises in a glade in the middle of the forest. The place is strangely quiet. However, we notice a faint but ominous odor, a putrid stench like that of rotten vegetables. And as soon as they come across into this burial mound area, Rorik is immediately going to start looking around, as are the others, because they don't really know what's here. There's been all sorts of rumors. There could be some spooky things lurking within the Iron Forest, especially within this place that's probably sacred and has, dead things buried underneath. So everybody's going to be on the lookout. I think Rorik is going to use bushcraft here to see if there's anything around that might be useful. He does not want to be surprised, so if they can find like any tracks or anything like that, or even better yet, bushcraft as in there might be animals around that they could, leave some traps around as they explore, and that way they can have a free meal. They don't have to use their rations. That's always a plus. Rorik's bushcraft is at 8, so he needs an 8 or under to succeed, so let's see what he finds. That is a 14, so he doesn't really spot anything. Now, Jaina is also going to be looking about, as are all of the other adventurers, and her bushcraft is 6, so let's see if she notices anything. She does not with a 17. So they're just kind of looking around. And eventually Rorik gets to the very center where this stone slab is. And that's when he notices that there's a little gap there. He peers inside. It's dark, but that darkness keeps going. It seems a lot larger than it has any right to be. And so he kind of turns to Quasimund and he's like, "Hey, I think there's something down here." And then Quasimund is like, "Hey, shut up. We don't want to draw any attention to ourselves." And so he kind of puts Rorik in his place for making such an amateur mistake, for yelling out like that. He comes over there to the stone slab and he kind of inspects it as well. And then he nods to Rorik. And then he nods to Rorik again. And then he says, "Will you just move the damn slab out of the way? Let's see what's down there." And so Rorik kind of begins to push the stone slab out of the way until there's now a big opening. They can see down into the darkness. It's not your typical tomb or anything like that. The hole just keeps going down. And so Rorik is going to spend some time with his flint and tinder and preparing a torch. And eventually, once that is done, he's going to drop it down into the shaft. The torch falls down about 5 meters until it hits the ground and it illuminates the circular area down at the bottom. They can tell that there's like some sort of a door up against the wall. This isn't your typical tomb. There's actually something down there, like some series of chambers perhaps, which means something hit something down there, something valuable perhaps. So Quasimund has his band of adventurers secure a rope and toss it down there so that Rorik can climb. Because for sure, Quasimund is not going to be the first one down there. In fact, since Rorik is the new guy in this little group, they're going to send him first. Or rather, him and Jaina. And Rorik, of course, is not going to send his sister down there first when he doesn't really know what's down there. There could be traps or anything like that. And so Rorik is going to descend down the rope first. This is going to be an acrobatics check to see if he can climb down there without falling. And so the thing about using rope is we do get a boon to successfully climb down this shaft. And so Rorik is rolling with a boon. His acrobatics is at an 8, which isn't the highest, but that boon could hopefully do something for him. All right, that 6 definitely allows him to successfully climb down there. And so he manages to get down to the ground where the torch is, and he has a very quick look around. He looks around this antechamber. It's a dome-shaped chamber with a floor of beaten earth. In the darkness far above, the opening to the surface looks like faintly glowing square. In the north wall is a set of double oaken doors with iron fittings. A silvery symbol stretches across both of the doors, which are flanked by statues of knights in antiquated armor. And he's going to look at this armor first, just to make sure that there isn't anything going on with them, that there's no traps or anything like that. And once he feels comfortable, he's going to go back to the rope in the center of the room and he's going to secure it so Jaina can come down. And so Jaina has an acrobatics of 12, with the boon, of course, since we are using the rope, and Rorik, of course, has it secured while she's climbing down. A 5 and a 16 will do it for sure. And so Jaina successfully climbs down and joins Rorik. And she too is going to start to check around this circular room just to make sure that there's nothing going on. Eventually, Quasimund's voice kind of booms down below. Is there anything down there that we need to be wary of? Rorik gives him the thumbs up that it's okay to come down. The band of adventurers comes down first, all 3 of them, one at a time, and then Quasimund is the last one down there. They all begin to inspect the room, especially the antiquated armor sets, and that's when Rorik kind of notices that the door has already been opened. And that's when he also noticed that there are footprints and drag marks leading up to the door. Jaina is going to inspect the armor pieces, so we're going to use myths and legends for that. And her myths and legends is at a 13, so let's see if she can find anything useful about this antiquated armor statues. That is an 11. That will go ahead and do it. So Jaina identifies the symbol on the door as a stylized crown from the ancient time when the Misty Vale was ruled by a mighty dragon-worshipping kingdom. And this would have been something that she would have learned about in her studies in mage school, basically. She would have learned about all sorts of areas and their myths and legends and the history and things like that. So she would have heard about this dragon-worshipping kingdom that was in the Misty Vale long, long ago. And as she continues to inspect the door and the statues, that's when they begin to hear some screeching noises. And then all of a sudden, a swarm of vampiric bats just swarm down and they begin to aggressively assault everyone around them. And so we are going to go ahead and roll for initiative. So we're already dealing with quite a bit here. We have Rorik and Jaina, as well as the band of adventurers and Quasimund. So that's at least 4 characters in total that we've got. The vampiric bats actually have a ferocity of 2, so that means they do get to draw 2 initiative cards. But we've got like 4 people on our side here, so quite a bit that can happen here. The only unfortunate thing is they're probably all carrying weapons and there's only 1 torch. So let's go ahead. We're going to draw for... Ooh, actually, you know what? They kind of got surprised. So I think we're going to draw for the bats first. So bats have a 7 and they have a 9. So potentially last. That's very good because we want to deal with these bats as quickly as possible. Let's have Rorik and Jaina. So Rorik will go first. He's got a 1. So Rorik is going first. And then for Jaina, we have a 2. So Jaina is going second. All right, we've got Quasimund. He's got a 4, so possibly third in order here. And his band of adventurers have a 6. All right, so the order goes like this. Rorik is going first, followed by Jaina, then Quasimund, and then the band of adventurers, and then the bats get to go twice. But hey, we might not even get there. We might actually deal with them first. And so the bats are just kind of swarming all around on level with everybody else. And so Rorik knows from experience how to deal with these bats. He's actually dealt with them before in the Deepfall Breach. And so the first thing he's going to do is he's going to sprint towards the torch and pick it up. And he's just going to start to use that torch to kind of hit any bats that come within his way. And so, of course, if you haven't used a torch in Dragonbane before, this actually is an improvised weapon that you can use in order to basically deal fire damage to an enemy. It requires 1 free hand and it deals 2d6 fire damage plus your damage bonus, and for Rorik that's going to be a d4. The attack can be dodged or parried, and you can of course keep the torch if you should find it as an improvised weapon, but we've already set this one up. So Rorik has his shield and he's going to have his torch, and he's just kind of like holding a shield in front of him while he's swiping with his torch. And so let's see, we are using our sword skill, which is at a 14. Let's see if he can successfully hit these bats. There it is, an 11 will do it, and so we're dealing 2d6 damage plus an additional d4 for the attack. So let's see how much he's going to do. Ooh, that's some good damage. That is 14 damage total. Now these vampiric bats have 18 HP, so they are down to 4 HP already. So that's actually really nice, which will leave Jaina up to hopefully getting rid of the bats. Let's see. And I think what she's going to do is she's going to do some very fluid motions in order to cast Gust of Wind. And this is really good for basically swarm specifically. And so she's going to very specifically aim her wind so it's not hitting Quasimund or his fellow band of adventurers or even Rorik. She's aiming specifically at the bats that are flying all around. So normally this would deal 2d4 points of damage, and that's how much you push them back. But for swarms, it's a little bit different. Against the swarm, the spell deals 2d6 damage. Each additional power level increases the damage of dice by 1, and the spell has no effect on monsters that are large or huge. So it's going to be 2d6 points of damage if we can successfully roll 13 or under for elementalism. So let's see what happens. That is a 6, so she does her fluid motions, and then the wind comes out from her hands, and let's see, 2d6 points of damage. That is 5, so that is more than enough to defeat this swarm of bats, and soon what's left, the bats just kind of fly up into the air and out of the hole that they've come from, and this encounter is over. So the combat is over. Everybody's breathing heavily. I mean, it was quite a spook that these bats suddenly came down and started to, well, attack them. But Rorik was very quick, as was Jaina, and they successfully scared the bats off. Quasimund is actually quite impressed at this feat. Unfortunately, he tells Rorik and Jaina that they are going to explore deeper inside Riddermound on their own, just in case there's anything that needs to be, well, anything that might need to be put back into the ground, let's just say. Quasimund is being very wary of the undead here. There's been all sorts of rumors about this area specifically, and so he's not going to take any chances with him or his men. And so Rorik and Jaina are going first. Now Rorik already knows that something has come through, possibly recently. The door is slightly open and there are tracks leading further in. So let's see. We're going to take one quick little moment to see if Rorik might find anything while they're taking a breather. We're going to do a spot hidden check. Rorik's spot hidden is now up to 13, since I did increase that in between the sessions. And so we need a 13 or under to spot something. Let's see if there's anything to be found. A 6. Rorik begins to search around, and he notices that there's something sticking out of the dirt. It's some sort of a curved dagger. Goblin made, of course. He's seen plenty of these. But it's also coated in something slick and wet. He sniffs it. This is viper venom. And so viper venom is going to have a potency of 9. And so leave it up to Quasimund to send Rorik and Jaina deeper into Riddermound when there are goblins about. And that is where we're going to end this session. And we're going to see if there's anything deeper inside Riddermound. And if there is, if Rorik and Jaina can deal with it.
Brother dearest, why have we grouped up with this obvious band of rogues? Wouldn't it be best to simply dispose of them and explore the tomb for valuables? It's not like they did anything when the bats attacked. Check back every other Thursday for a new episode of Table for One, a solo role-playing podcast. If you would like to support this podcast, please rate it or give it a thumbs up wherever you happen to be listening from. If you happen to be watching on YouTube, subscribe and be sure to leave a comment. Music was provided by Tabletop Audio and AI voice work by 11 Labs. Oh, and don't even get me started with the goblin. It keeps staring at me.